Hello everyone and welcome to the class. This is David A. Cox with PCClassesOnline.com, and today I'm going to be teaching you as much as I can possibly teach you about the program Keynote. Now, some of you may be aware Keynote is sort of the Mac alternative to Microsoft PowerPoint. Now, yes, you can run PowerPoint for Mac. They make a version. They have several versions. They have the brand new Office 365 version, the 2011 and the 2008. But for me, Keynote has always been so much of a better built program as far as being so much more friendly and fun, frankly, to use. It's a lot more creative. But one of the things I always like to put out there, something a professor taught me many, many years ago, which is that the trick to giving a good Keynote presentation has nothing to do with the technology. It's all about the presenter. So I'm going to teach you as many of the tools today that I can possibly teach you, but ultimately for it to be a great presentation, that just takes talent and good communication skills. So let's get going. If you do not have Keynote on your computer, you can get it now directly through the App Store. You just go to the little Apple icon at the top left of your screen, go into App Store, and type in Keynote right up here at the top. It's also always on the top 10 list, it seems. So let's close that out. This is what you see when you first open up Keynote. And you'll see here that at the very top, immediately you can choose between a standard presentation or a widescreen presentation. Now, if you change your mind down the road, you can adjust it. It's not an issue. It's one of these things where if you know the presentation you're going to give is going to be on a flat screen, those are all 16:9 ratio. That's where widescreen is going to definitely come in handy. And so you have all of these different really well-built templates to work with. And you can kind of scroll through here and you'll see they all have a very, very clean, professional feel to them. They don't look cheesy at all. If you actually want more themes here, there are plenty of different apps in the App Store. If you just go in there and type in the word Keynote themes, you'll find a million different programs that pop up which integrate with Keynote. That being said, I've taken a look at some of them, and some of them are pretty bad. The ones that Apple gives you really are pretty clean, very, very, very good. So let's go through here. We're going to just pick a dummy example here to play with. Let's go for today with, let's see, let's do this types. Let's do modern portfolio. That looks good. Okay, so this is what you see when you first open it up. You know what? Hold on. I actually want to change to a different one. My bad. New. Let's go into the cream paper one. That's the one I was teaching the other day. Okay, now right now you'll see on my screen it looks huge. The easiest way to fix that is just go up here to the very top left of your screen where it says zoom, and you may want to pull back a little bit. I'm going to pull back to 50% just so I can really see what I'm dealing with here. And this application is very, very intuitive to use. And what's great is that if you want to go between Keynote and PowerPoint, you can do that. There's only a couple little downsides that I'll warn you about in a little bit. But before I even get into teaching you how to put together your Keynote presentation, I always like giving our members a couple of extra tips and tricks to help them with this process. Now, obviously, with a Keynote presentation, you're going to want to make it a little bit more interactive. You're going to want to have graphics and photos, or maybe either or, depending on what your subject matter is. And one of the things I would like to just kind of inform all of you about is a location where I go to get several of the graphics that we use for different types of projects, but also a great resource for photos too. So what I'd recommend that you do, if you need photos, you don't need to necessarily go and get one of the paid photos, where you're paying a licensing fee. You really only need to do that if you're actually making money directly from the Keynote. For example, if you're going to upload it to YouTube and you're going to monetize the video, that would be an example. No, the place that I actually go to get most of my images and graphics these days is if you go to your web browser and go to images.google.com. And when you go to that website, you are now searching in Google just purely for images. And there's a type of file format that I would like to turn you on to. Many of you have probably heard of a JPEG. A JPEG is the type of format that you would typically have with a photo. But when you're dealing with graphics, one of the things that really comes in handy when you're using a presentation software like Keynote or PowerPoint is you want it to be a transparency. because otherwise you're going to have this white background just kind of floating in the background. It doesn't really make sense, and it just kind of distracts from your project. So let's say I'm going to be giving a real estate presentation. I may want a graphic of a house, okay? So what I would recommend doing is when you go to Google, if you're pulling up images, there's a specific format you're going to want to search for, which is PNG. A PNG file implies that it is a transparency. So for example, let's say I take this graphic right here. Okay, by the way, I'm not the moral police, so if you take one of these graphics and you make money from it, I am in no way, of course, responsible for that. You see how when I pulled up the full screen image here, there's now a checkered background? That implies that this is a PNG file. That's Paul, Newman, Gary, okay? So that's what you're going to be looking for. And anytime you want a graphic or a photo for that matter in your presentation, there's a couple of different ways that you can actually insert it. You could just move your little web browser here over to the side just so you can see your presentation and literally drag it and drop it on top. And so now you'll see here I have no messy background. As opposed to, just to give you an example here, let's say I didn't do that. Let's say I just put house graphic. Let's see if I can find a JPEG here. Nope, that's a PNG. That's a PNG. Darn, I'm striking out today. Okay, so this one here, you'll see this is a white background. When I drag this in, see how that just, it looks like it was dragged and dropped there? Well, that's why you don't want that. That's why you want to try to have as many PNG files as possible. Now, what happens if you find the absolute perfect photo or perfect image, but it's not? It is a JPEG. I'm going to show you how to convert it so that it still has that transparent quality to it in just a little bit. The other thing some people will want to do with their keynote presentations is they may want to bring a video file into their project, which is totally fine. It makes it more interactive. It kind of keeps the audience a little bit more interested. There's only a couple of file formats in general that work. The top two, the only two I know of, are .mov and a .mp4. Now, if you have a video file, let's say you have Windows Media Video or an AVI file that you would like brought into your presentation, what I would encourage you to do is if you actually go into the App Store, they make plenty of different video conversion software so that it will become either a .mov or a .mp4 file format. That way it will embed within your presentation so you can say, hey, check out this house, hit play, and a video plays from within the keynote presentation. So now what I'd like to do is I want to kind of take you through the basics here of how Keynote is set up, go over some of the different buttons, the various things you can do. And we're going to start with talking about adding content, okay? So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to actually add a blank slide. Anytime you want to add a slide, whether blank or if you want to use a template, all you have to do is go here to the very top left of Keynote. You'll see there's a little plus symbol, and when you click on that, you get all these different templates that you can choose from. Now, there is a blank one here at the very bottom, but you'll see some of these have already built-in bullet points. Some are designed for quotations. Others integrate photos, so you can really kind of play with this and get it to the way you want it to be. For now, let's just go into a blank slide. So now on the left-hand side, over here on my viewer, you can see we have our first slide and now our second one. Now up here at the top of the screen is where you can go to insert different types of content. For example, we have a table that you can just drop right in. You'll notice that when I clicked on that, we have these 4 different types, and we also have these arrows on either side. Those arrows just simply change the color. So if you don't want it to be green, you can make it a different color instead. Okay? And what's great about these tables is that if you want to use a function like you would in Excel or numbers, you can do that. It's all the exact same formulas. Of course, if you are here live right now, we do have a class coming up very soon on Microsoft Excel, which is very, very similar to Apple's software called Numbers. So in here, you could put in whatever data you want. Anytime you want to add a column or a row, you'll notice that here at the bottom, I always mix up columns and rows. Here at the bottom left, I can click right here and I can add as many different rows, I think, as possible. Always mix that up. And up here you can add as many columns. Okay, so you can add or subtract as many as you want. We'll go over what you see on the right-hand side of the screen here in just a little bit, because I know a few people here probably have questions about that. Next, up at the top, we have a chart. So you can create either a 2D, a 3D, or an interactive chart. And I'm going to be showing you an interactive chart. You know what? Let me do it right now. Because I think most people here know what a 2D chart is. Most people here know a 3D chart just kind of makes it pop out. But not everyone knows what an interactive chart is. This is great when you're giving something like a business presentation and you're showing a lapse of time or growth, or probably both. So you can choose through your different types, of course, of different charts here. Let me just use this one here as an example. Okay? So to edit the actual chart, you just click this little button down here at the bottom. It says Edit Chart Data. Looks just like an Excel spreadsheet. It basically is. So let's say that we're showing sales for two particular stores. So where it says Region 1, I'm going to change that to Store 1. Region 2, I'm going to change to Store 2. So I'm showing a progress of time. So these are the sales in April. These are the sales in May, June, and July. Okay. What's great with an interactive chart is you can have it go through this over time and it'll adjust. It'll show itself. So for example, if I quickly go to play this presentation just to show you what it looks like right now. If you see at the top, sort of towards the left a little bit, we have a play button. If I click that, oops, let me swap these so you can see it. When I click, you'll see that it's adjusting and it's showing progress over time. Okay? That's an interactive chart. And the way you can really tweak your interactive chart, especially in terms of speed, all of that information you're going to find is over here on the right-hand side. Okay? So right now we have that interactive chart. You can change the different fonts right here. Okay? You can change it different type to buttons only, for example. But also up here, you'll see different tabs. So we can change the different access information, series. We don't really need to go into that. Arrange it. What doesn't really apply to this. But you can go in here and really start to play with it. The other part that you'll notice is there's an animate button up here. Okay, this is where you're going to determine the speed of how fast this chart moves. So right now it's set to 5 seconds. But what if I want to really take my time and I want to show that progress slowly? Instead of just clicking one button and it goes through the different 4 months right there, instead you could click each time you want it to go to a new month. So for that, you'll see here under Delivery, we would just change it from continuous to by set. Okay, so I click once, it's on the first month, click again, second month, etc. But it's just a nice way, again, to interact with your audience. All Keynote is it's a tool for giving a presentation. Personally, I just believe it should never be the presentation. You, the presenter, are the presentation. Let's delete that and go on to a few other things here. Whenever you want text, if it isn't part of the template that you're using, you can always add a text box, just simply by clicking right here at the very top of your screen. Drops usually right down into the middle. And just like this were a Word document, you can just type into it. So this is my text. And if you want to format that text, once again, over here, if you look at the right-hand side of the screen, this section that you see right here, this is referred to as the inspector. In the previous version of Keynote, this was actually separate. Now it's kind of all tied in. And so we want to format the text, so we're going to click over here on Format. And here's all the normal tools you would expect for formatting text, changing the font, changing the size, alignment, etc. And when it comes to just moving around, it's as simple as clicking in the middle and just dragging it wherever you want it to be on the screen. Very, very simple stuff. Next, sometimes you might want a shape. More than anything, people use arrows in presentations, saying, look here, focus on this. For that, you can click here on Shape, and you'll see here that we do have a bunch of different options here. One thing I always like to note is if you do find these boring and dull, you can just go to Google Images and pull an arrow from there. So if you want it to look a little bit more interesting than just, that, you can go to Google Images, get whatever you want, make sure it's a PNG file if possible, and just drop it into your presentation. But you'll see here they have more than just arrows. They also have squares and circles. And sometimes where these can actually be really helpful is when you put text inside one of these shapes. So let's say I've got my image of the house, and I may want to have a little oval over here at the top. Move my text on top of it. Ooh, where did the text go? So right now, this text is behind the shape. And I'm showing this for a reason. You'll notice here, once again, under Format, the third tab here is Arrange. You can see based on where the little boxes are here that I have actually still clicked on the text. And all you have to do is click here to forward, and now the text comes to the front. Alternatively, I could have clicked on the circle and sent it backwards, which would have the same effect. Okay. Now, for those of you who have questions about things that we're going over right now, for those of you who are here live, feel free to type into your question box. We'll go over everything at the very end for the people who have questions, and take as much time as we need to get you all comfortable with this software. Moving on, okay, let's delete these. Sometimes you want to bring in media to your presentation. It could be video, it could be sound, it could be photos. There's a little warning coming up here. So for photos, what's really easy, and those of you who have been on the Mac for a while are familiar with this, one of the best parts of the Mac is the fact that everything just communicates with each other. So if I want to bring in a photo, that photo is probably in iPhoto, the program iPhoto. So all I have to do is click here on Media. There are 3 tabs: Photos, Music, Movies. Photo is actually talking to iPhoto. And so the reason why I bring this up is it's not a bad idea if you're going to have a lot of photos to already have them organized into albums in iPhoto. That way you immediately know where to go to get your content. So if you've created if we're doing a real estate presentation, you may have all of the photos for one particular house organized into one album. That way you can just very quickly go to it, you know where that photo is coming from, and then when you want to add it to your presentation, you just click on it. Now, what if I don't want this photo to be that big? An important thing to know is that you can resize everything here. So it may be hard for some of you to see this if you're here live right now, but those of you watching this either on YouTube or on our website should be able to see there are these little white boxes that you'll see not just at the corners of this image, but also in the middle. You can just click. I usually use one of the corner ones. When you hover your cursor over it, it turns into 2 arrows, and now you can click and drag and make this however big you want. So maybe I want a 2-up view, so I want one photo on top of the other. I can do that. Go back to Media, grab another image, do the same exact thing. And so now I've got 2 photos that are just kind of on top of each other. One thing that's really handy is when you're dealing with multiple images or multiple objects, you'll notice you get these little guides to kind of show you where is even. So in this case, it's telling me that these 2 images now line up. Okay? Thought I'd show you that little part right there. The word of warning I want to give does have to do with music. Music can be very distracting in a keynote presentation. I've had a few clients of mine ask, how to do it, and I just tell them, please, if you're going to be using music, the only time where you ever want to do that is if you are actually creating a movie file, meaning when you're done with this presentation, it's going to be a video file, in which case I would add the music later on in editing. I wouldn't do it in Keynote. But where this might be handy is, let's say you want a cute little stupid sound effect to pop up at some point in time. You'd want that sound effect to be in your iTunes library. You could, of course, create a playlist, organize it the exact same way you would organize albums in regards to iPhoto, and you can just, once again, drop it in. And what's going to happen is if you do that, in order to trigger the sound, you're going to click once you're already on that slide, and it will trigger the noise to play. The Movies tab right here may be a little deceptive. It's actually talking to movies that are either in iMovie or iPhoto. So for example, if you have an iPhone, of course you're probably familiar with the fact that your phone can do more than just shooting photos. You can also shoot video. That video is still within iPhoto. So this would just give you all of your little movies Same exact idea, you just drop it into your presentation, and now you have video inside your Keynote presentation. Comments right here is used when you're collaborating. So if you want to go back and forth between different people and say, we need to get this presentation right, you could have one person, I don't know why it has my name here so small. It's very hard, I know, for some of you to see that. This actually does have my name attached to it, but I could just kind of put a little note over here and I'd say, make this photo bigger, do this or that. It's not actually in the presentation. Only the people who are really collaborating are going to be able to see those notes. I'm also going to give you a few tricks for collaborating towards the end of this class, so we'll get there. Let's get rid of that. Okay. I'm going to get here to share in a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about over here on the right-hand side, the inspector. Okay, so the inspector is going to change based on whatever it is you're clicked on. So for example, when I click on text and I'm on format, it knows I can have these different borders around. This case, this is a heading, but it's going to alter based on whatever you're clicked on. If you're on a photo, it's going to have one thing. Text, it's going to be another. Under the Format tab, we have Style, Text, that's where you have all of your fonts, etc., and Arrange, which I showed you just a moment ago. Let's go over here. The same is going to be true in some cases, in some ways, for a photo. Let me give you an example where this might help you. Let's say you have a photo that you've brought into your presentation, but you're not quite happy with the way it looks. Instead of having to go into iPhoto and maybe enhance it a little bit, whether you're tweaking the saturation or contrast, etc., you can actually do it all from right here within Keynote. All you have to do is click on the photo. Let's actually use this one here. This is prettier. And I'll actually blow it up so you can see it a little better. All you have to do is click on your photo. Once again, we're on Format, but this time we're on the middle tab, which is Image. And if you look down here towards the middle, we can, right from here, we can change the exposure. Okay. Saturation, we can make that a little bit brighter. Saturation really brings out the colors in it. You can also, if you want to really get into it, see this little button right here? That will give you all of your little controls here, so you can change the exposure, contrast, saturation, highlights, shadows, sharpness, denoise, temperature, tint. Pretty cool. And you thought you had to go to iPhoto to do that. Nope, you can do it right here. The other feature I want to show you, and this is really a big lifesaver when dealing with graphics. Let me go back to, oh good, I still have this image here of this pretty bad, but house icon. I mentioned earlier, what if you have an image that you want to use in your Keynote, but it's not a PNG format? Well, there's this really great trick built into Keynote called Instant Alpha, which will remove it. Here's how it works. Same location, format, image, and right now we're going to click on Instant Alpha. And what Instant Alpha allows you to do is when you put your cursor over the image, you kind of zooms in, you're going to click on the background and it removes it. Now I'm going to actually undo that. What if there's like this little, you might be able to see there's like a little shadow here sort of around the icon. If it doesn't do it right in one click, you can actually click and hold down and drag your cursor down, and you'll see here it's just kind of refining it a little bit better. Let's go inside the O. And so now, when I click done, that graphic, which was not a transparency, is now transparent. It's a great little trick. You don't have to know Photoshop to do this stuff. You can do it all right here within Keynote. It's a great little feature. Okay, also up here we have Animate, and Animate gets to be pretty fun. So give me a second just to set some stuff up here. I'm going to actually, let me copy that. Just trying to set this up. So let's go into Title 1, and we're going to call it David's Real. I can never type when we're live. Okay. Saving you money. So let's say I'm in here, and I've got my little graphic. I know this is incredibly cheesy, but we're trying to do this to make a point. I'm going to actually delete that slide. I'm going to show you a few different features of how to animate and how to transition. One of the most popular types of transitions is a special kind called a magic move. And a magic move is when you have two slides with the same content. And what's going to happen is the content is either going to grow or shrink or move. So I'm giving my presentation at this point, and now what I want is on slide 2, I want this to move up here, this is going to move with it, and it's going to shrink down, and maybe this saving you money is going to go away. I want to show you first how to do a magic move before we actually get into transitions. And magic move is a little tricky, so I'm going to try to go slow here. Step 1, make sure you have the content that you want on the original slide. What you're now going to do is go over here to where you see the little preview of your slide, and you're going to secondary click. So for those of you on a desktop, some of you have an option where when you click on the right side of the mouse, you get these extra little options. If you're on a laptop, it may mean clicking with 2 fingers on your trackpad, or the universal way you can also do it is if you hold the Control key on your keyboard and click down. You'll also get these options. And what you're going to do is you're going to duplicate, which is third to the last item. So now, we're now on slide 2. We have 2 identical slides, and I'm going to make all those little moves that I want it to do. So I'm going to shrink this. I'm going to take my text and move it up here. I'm going to actually shrink that down a little bit. Oops. Come on. Let's make this, it's right now 90 point. Let's make it 62. And I'm going to delete that text. Okay? So now all I have to do to make that happen is I'm going to go back here to slide 1, go over here to the Animate tab, and you'll see here that I can add an effect, and the first option after none is Magic Move. Now if you want to see what it looks like before you actually do it, there is a little preview button here, and there you go. So you just told it to animate this title by moving it. Very, very simple. Just like that. And so you go from slide 1 to slide 2. Now let's talk about some of the other transitions that we have. And for this, I just want to create some dummy content here, so please give me a second. Let me go into Media. Oh, here's another trick I want to give you. When you're dealing with one of the slides that has a photo in it here, instead of having to go to Media and go into your photo, if you look here at the bottom right corner of this placeholder image, there's this little icon in a circle. If you click on that, you're now telling the computer, replace that photo with yours. Otherwise, if you go to the Media button instead, it's just going to simply add a photo. It doesn't know that you're telling it what to replace it. So there we go. Okay, so we've got this. Okay, I'm just going through here and just trying to add a couple little bits here. Oops, there we go. So now, let's say I want to transition from one slide to the other. It's very, very simple. It's much easier than having to do the magic move. You go on the previous slide, and once again, under the Animate tab, you're going to click here where it says Add an Effect. Okay? And so they have a whole bunch of different ones here, and some of you, I think some of people have actually already picked up on this who are here live. Apple just released an update to Keynote the other day. Of course, that's as of today's date that we're recording this, where they added a whole bunch of updates to their different effects. And so to look at what the different effects look like, you can either apply them, or once again, you do have a preview button here. So in this case, it's kind of revolving door effect. Pivot. The one thing I always warn people about, try not to get too cheesy with these transitions, because when you start to have a different transition for every single slide and it's a big presentation, it gets very distracting and it gets people away from your topic. I have to tell that all the time to kids when I'm teaching iMovie. All right, so find one that works for you. Because this is real estate, let's just use blinds, okay? So it flips just like that. You can change the duration here by dragging this little button left or right. So I can make it longer or shorter, and I can tell it when to click. I'm just going to do it on click. It's the easiest way to do it. So now if I hit play, we're on slide 2. I'm giving my presentation. When I click, we're now on slide 3. Very simple. Okay, just going through my notes here real quickly. Build in. Okay. Another thing that a lot of people have when giving a presentation is you're going to have bullet points. And when you're giving bullet point topics, you don't want them all to come out at once. You want them to come in one at a time. At least that's what most people do. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another template here. I'm going to go to one that already has bullet points built into it. So let's say I'm just going to call this example 1, example 2, example 3. Okay, so as I'm giving this, I'm talking. I want these to come out one at a time. Here's how you do that. In this case, what you're going to do is you're actually going to go over here into, we're under animate on the left-hand side. And we're going to go into add an effect. I'm sorry, build in, my bad. Up here. Okay, great. So when you go into build in and you pick the effect that you're looking for, you'll see right off the bat it did do them all at once. But here on the right-hand side where it says delivery, just change it from all at once to by bullet. Very simple. Okay, so now when I do it, if I hit preview, example 1, example 2, example 3. Okay, and that will be, I'll click on the computer to actually tell it when to do that. Okay, action here, I don't think many people are going to really be using action. It's sort of to really emphasize your point. So let's say I've given all of these and I want example 2 to really stand out. I can go here into action, add an effect. I don't think I clicked on that. And let's say I want it to bounce. Okay. I can tell it to just basically bounce one of them. Go in here to build order. I'm just going to do that one. Okay. So that's something that you would, I don't think many of you would even care about that. Building out is sort of just like a transition, but you're making the text disappear. Again, something not very many people actually use in a presentation, but it's the exact same process as building in. So you'd pick the effect that you want, and then you can either tell it to do them all at once or one by one. Up to you. Okay, next thing I want to go over is some of the tools that you have access to as the presenter, and this is really nice. What I would recommend doing as you're building your keynote presentation, if you're going to be giving this kind of a thing live, you have access to a different screen than what the audience sees. And for that, a really handy tool is Notes. Go here to View at the very top of your screen, and you're going to go here into Show Presenter Notes. So for people who want to make it look like they don't have a script, but they actually do, you can put your script right here. That way you know exactly what to say. Other people will just kind of use reference notes. And when you go to present this to the public, these notes are not going to be visible on the second monitor that you use. I'm going to give you a couple tricks, by the way, on second monitors in a little bit. You know what? Let's actually go into it right now. So when you're giving your presentation, I'm going to actually go here to play. Okay. And give me 1 second. I just have to swap these screens here so that you can see it. Most people who, when they give a presentation, are going to have two different monitors. Okay, one is going to be probably their computer, and the other might be a television screen or an actual monitor, up to you. So this is the layout that I have currently right here. So if I actually go back, I'm just using my arrows to navigate here. On your keyboard, you have a left and right arrow, and you can use those to navigate between the different slides. So now we're here on the beginning. So this is what the public sees right now. I actually have in my office here, I actually have two monitors, but none of you can see the second one. So this right now is the one that the public sees. This is what's coming up. Down here I have my presenter notes. There's also some other things that you have access to. If you look up here at the top right, might be a little bit hard to see, there's these three little boxes. And when you click on them, these are all the different tools that you have access to as the presenter. Actually, I believe the way Keynote comes by default, this and this are hidden. So right now it's just showing me the time, but if I want to make sure that I'm not going over in my presentation, over here there's a counter showing me either how much time has elapsed or how much time is remaining. Okay, you just type in the amount of time your presentation should be. So I'd put in maybe 10 minutes. Okay. So now it's counting down. But you can also have your presenter notes here. It's just a really easy way so that you have all of your information, but the public doesn't see it. Okay, let's get out of full screen mode. There we are. Now, some people, when they're giving the presentation, want to record it. One funny thing, you may or may not have even noticed this, but many of the people who find out about PC classes online find out through YouTube. And some of you may have seen on our YouTube channel a little 30-second video, and it just kind of is a little promo video. That is actually entirely recorded in Keynote. There is no Final Cut Pro in that. The only part that is I used iMovie for the background music, like I recommended a little while ago. So if you want to record your presentation, and this includes, you can add voiceover work, all you have to do is go up here to, I believe it's under Play, and go to Record Slideshow. So when you do this, and you can of course do as many takes as you want, now if you look at the very bottom of the screen, you'll see down here I have my microphone showing up, okay, and I can hit the little record button. So when this is done, you're going to have a video file of your presentation. And this is great as far as rehearsing, getting your speed accurate, because a lot of people don't want to go too fast or too slow when giving their presentation to keep the audience engaged. So you can record it, and then when you're done with your presentation, like let's just do a couple seconds here real quick. Gives you a countdown. Hey everyone, and welcome to David's real estate presentation. Here I'm going to show you how to buy a home and save money and all sorts of other good stuff and blah 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 blah. We're done. Wasn't that Emmy winning? Okay, let's get out of this. So now that I've recorded that video, now here under Play, you'll see we have a few other options here. I can play the recorded slideshow that I just created, or if you want, you have a little share button either here or here. And you can send a copy of this video now through email, which I would never recommend because video is just too big for email, iMessage, AirDrop, YouTube. You can post it to Facebook or Vimeo. Very, very simple. One little tip if you're giving a presentation and you're trying to get this either on Vimeo, YouTube, or Facebook, I would really strongly recommend avoiding Vimeo. My biggest mistake in business when starting PCClassesOnline.com, we originally hosted all of our videos with Vimeo, which has zero social interactive capabilities compared to YouTube. So if you're going to post this on Facebook, post it to YouTube first, then share it to Facebook. Because Facebook doesn't give you any analytics. You can't tell how many people have watched it. You can't tell where they live, generally speaking. So I always tell people, if you're going to do video content, host it on YouTube. Sorry, little off-topic recommendation there. Also, you'll see here at the top right, we kind of skipped over this button here. We have a document button. It's pretty simple. If you want to change your theme at any point, just click here, change theme. You get the same options right here. I can go to gradient, okay, and boom, it just reformatted everything. We'll just duplicate it out. So now I have the exact same presentation with a slightly different style to it. Okay. By the way, this is the theme that Apple uses in all of their keynote presentations when they announce new products. Also, you have here under the Document tab a few other little options here. For example, you can tell it to automatically loop. One example where this is actually very handy is some real estate people will have a TV in their main window if they are on a busy street, and they'll just tell this to automatically loop, and it'll just keep playing over and over again all night long. Presentation type, I don't think anyone here is going to be dealing with that. The slide size, it will just change back and forth between 4:3 and 16:9. If you are working on something that is sensitive, private information, you can password protect this document. Just simply by clicking here, you'll have to type in the password, and that's it. Also here, you'll see we have an audio tab, so you can have a soundtrack. The big difference here between soundtrack and media, where you have music, is this music is just for one slide. As soon as you go to the next slide, it's going to cut out. So that's why you don't really even use music in your presentation in this format. For that, you'd have to bring in the music just by clicking down here. Once again, it connects right into iTunes. Pick your music. It'll play throughout the whole presentation. Just please don't pick anything too distracting. It can just really get people to stop. Especially if they're watching this kind of a video on the web. One of the things I found, a lot of people are playing music in the background. And so when they have music playing and then they pull up your Keynote and there's music, it's very distracting. Most people will just close it. So that's that. Couple other little tips I wanted to give all of you before we open up the question segment of this class where any of you who are here live can interact, is I want to give you a few tips for collaborating with other people. Obviously, the big competitor to Keynote is Microsoft in their software PowerPoint. So there are quite a few different things that you can actually do to work back and forth with people. So if you click the share button right here, you'll notice that the very first option here is share link via iCloud. So here's what's really, really handy about Keynote, as well as the other iWork applications, Numbers, and Pages, is the fact that you don't need the software Keynote on a Mac to be able to access and run a Keynote presentation. So for example, let's say you're going to be giving your presentation, but the place that you're going to be giving it only has access to a PC. Well, this is pretty cool. So when you're done with your document, you're going to save it, right? And of course, what's one of the locations you can save it? You can save this to iCloud. So let's call it David's Keynote Presentation. So this whole file, this whole presentation, is now stored in the cloud. So whether you need to run this presentation from a different computer, or let's say you get a great idea for a little change that you want to make to it, but you don't have your computer, you can open up your web browser and go to iCloud.com and have access to all the same tools. Hold on, I have to remember my teaching. Nope. Don't you love it when you're in front of a live audience and you forget your own damn password? Okay, I'm logged in here. This is my dummy account that I use just for teaching purposes. I can now go here into Keynote, and you'll see in just a minute. Here it is, David's real estate presentation, now available on the web. This is also another tip for those of you who attend our classes regularly. We talked recently about the Google Chromebooks that are out there. And one of the big complaints a lot of people have is, well, you can't run Microsoft Office. True, but you can run Pages, Keynote, and Numbers all from iCloud.com, which is kind of a cool little feature. So as soon as I load this up, watch this. It's the exact same presentation. The other thing I do want to mention is that if you are going to collaborate with people who, let's say you have a file that was done either in PowerPoint or you're going from Keynote to PowerPoint, the only thing that you tend to end up losing in the process, the fonts are slightly different between a Mac and a PC, but those are all very, very minor. The other thing is if you, for example, have a magic move in your Keynote presentation, there is no such thing as magic move in PowerPoint, so that feature will drop out. It'll just be a transition instead, or it'll rather just cut from one location to the other. But otherwise, you actually can go back and forth. So here, this is the mobile version of Keynote, but I still have access to pretty much all the same tools. You know, the three icons that we had at the top, they're just a little bit different here, but I have all my settings I can still access here. If I go over here, you know, I've got my different charts, my text, etc. So you do still have the same thing here. One of the questions that came in just a little while ago was someone said, how do I open a PowerPoint file in Keynote? Well, there's a couple different ways you can do it. If you actually don't have Keynote in your computer, if you double click on it, it's going to automatically open it. The other trick I want to show you real quick, let me just go into my Documents folder here as an example. This is just a universal command, okay? If you are on a file here, this is in this case just a document, if you secondary click on that file, you get a series of additional options here. The second one down is open with, and so now I can tell my Mac exactly what software to open this particular file. So in this case, it's giving me the option of Pages. I actually have access to the older version of Pages. Text edit. If I had Microsoft Office on this computer, I could also open this file in Word. Again, just another example. Okie dokie. Let me get back into that and just go through here. Oh, a couple other little tricks I did want to give you. A new feature with one of the recent updates is you see this toolbar at the very top of the screen. Of course, we've been talking about what all these icons do. You can actually customize this now. So all you have to do is secondary click on your toolbar, go here into Customize Toolbar, and let's say that you know you're going to be doing a lot of instant alpha. You're doing a lot of photos, you need to delete those backgrounds. You can take any of the items here, including, where is instant alpha? Right there. And I can drag this into the toolbar, which I actually did yesterday, or 2 days ago when I taught this class. But you have a few other options here. If you're going to be printing it, you can take the little print icon, drag that up to your toolbar, as well as other things that you see here. Okay. Another tip I wanted to give everyone here, and I believe I actually did see one person already ask this in the live chat, which is how to get this actually on a TV. That confuses some people. Do you do a DVD? What do you do? Well, you can, of course, buy a cord to plug your computer into a television. Another way that you can do it, this is the way I've typically done it, is there's this little gadget. It's really handy. They're very popular, called Apple TV. It's a little black box, looks like a hockey puck, and it has an HDMI cable, so the TV that it's working with does need to have a high-def connection. But when you hook up Apple TV to a standard high-def TV, you'll notice that you have this little icon up here at the top right. So what I can do is by clicking up here, I can, for example, my office is connected to my house, and we have 2 Apple TVs in our house, one in the bedroom, one in the great room, and so I can just click on this, and it's going to sling the presentation wirelessly onto my television. So that way you don't have cords dripping around everywhere. It's very, very easy to set up. Another thing I want to mention as a tip is when you're giving a presentation, one of the key things that helps the presenter feel comfortable is the ability to use their hands. And so not everyone wants to be tied down to their computer. There's this really great thing you can do if you have an iPhone or an iPad, where you can have your iPhone or iPad become a remote control. Here's how you do it. You're going to have to go into the App Store on whichever device you have. There is an app made by Apple called Remote, and of course it's free. Then in Keynote, you're going to go into Preferences, click on where it says Keynote at the top left, go into Preferences. You'll see here the final tab is Remotes, Enable, and so that way, while you're giving your presentation, you just simply slide your finger on your phone and it'll go to the next slide. Just another way to kind of release you from being tied down to your computer in order to give a great presentation. You'll notice that when Tim Cook and the other executives at Apple are giving their keynote presentations, they're using their hands. They're not sitting behind a desk. They're not tied down. They are interacting with the content that is on the screen. And this is one of the tricks that they use. Also, if you don't have one of those, there is a cheap little $29 remote that you can buy. It's actually the same remote that's used with Apple TV. You can get that through Amazon or Apple's website. And that is really what I wanted to go over for the most part with all of you as far as PowerPoint, as far as Keynote goes. Slip of the tongue there. So for those of you who have questions, some of you have been submitting them this whole time. Excellent. We're going to go through as many of them as we possibly can. For those of you who have maybe been watching this video either on our website or on YouTube, I hope you enjoyed this. If you happen to be watching this on YouTube, one little teeny tiny thing all of you can do that would really help us out is you have a little like button below every video on YouTube. If you click it for our videos, it's sort of like giving us a tip. Of course, we make all of these presentations free and open to the public. It's a really easy way to show your thanks. So thank you. For those of you who are here live, let's get to your questions.